Welcome to Sandra's Bible Tales. Today, the class it's a hop teaching. It's the fourth one that I do, and it's called Here I Am, Lord. And if you go to the book of Exodus chapter 3, verse 1 through 4, it says, Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the back of the desert and came to Horeb, the mountain of God, and the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire from the midst of a bush. So he looked, and behold, the bush was burning with fire, but the bush was not consumed. Then Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush does not burn. So when the Lord saw that he turned aside to look, God called to him from the midst of the bush and said to him, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. So Moses lived through a lot of hard stuff. Moses grew up in a palace in Egypt as the son of Pharaoh's daughter, and he gave up everything in regards to do the will of God. And you say, Sandra, how do you know this? Because if you go to the book of Hebrews 11 through 24, 26, it says, By faith Moses, when he became of age, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the passing pleasures of sin, esteeming the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures in Egypt, for he looked to the reward. So Moses looked to the reward. And in your life, there's going to be similar decisions that you're going to have to do. People are going to offer you riches, fame, power, maybe not fame, but maybe power, maybe not power, but some temporary delight, something that's temporary. And you're going to have to decide whether you go after that or whether you go after Christ, even if it requires suffering, because you have to choose. And Moses knew, even though I suffer with the Israelites, even though they're poor, even though they're slaves, even though they're murmuring, they complain, even though here I'm wealthy and I have riches, he understood that eternally Jesus Christ was a greater reward. The face of God, the ways of God were a greater reward. So it says, in you and through you. One thing is for God to do something in you, and quite another is for him to do something through you. It's like saying one thing is to be blessed and another thing is to be a blessing. When you're blessed, it's kind of like selfish. It's for me, for me, for me. But when you're a blessing to others. And in order for you to become a blessing, it requires 3 words. And those 3 words are, Here I am, Lord. So it took Moses 40 years. Now, why did it take him so long? Was it that God wanted it to take so long? No, it's because Moses delayed it. 40 years it took him. And I can tell you that I was backslidden for quite a while. And I think about it now and I'm like, man, all those years that I wasted. You know, I could have right now maybe been in my calling already. I could have been maybe traveling and preaching the gospel, but instead I have to be starting all over again. So we choose. And what do we do with the time that we have here on earth? You know, because of our sin, there's family members that are not getting saved, that are not seeing the testimony, that are not seeing Christ through you because you're not living a life that is glorifying God. So you have to choose and know that whatever you choose has consequences. And it says in Exodus 3:5, Then God said, Do not draw near this place. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place where you stand is holy ground. So God asked Moses to remove his sandals because to Hebrews, feet symbolize power. And Moses understood at the moment that God was asking him to remove his human ability. In order for, when we have problems, sometimes we think we can solve them. Oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. But when you trust God, you understand that God's ways is not men's ways. And what you're planning is not necessarily what God has in mind. So you can do whatever you want, but God is saying, stop, give the burden to me. Let me carry the burden. Why do you insist in doing it yourself? Do you think you have more power than I do? You know, God is God. So what does the phrase Here I Am mean to God? To God, these words means 2 things, which is total willingness and total commitment. Surrender, that's what it means. So this means to stop doing what you are doing and to do what God wants to do, the will of God, to give priority to God's will and plans. If you obey and allow him to work with your character and will, even though you are unable to understand how, God will do what he said he would do. Surrender everything to him and you will see acceleration in your life. So the message today is just that. You know, it's telling God, Here I am, God, use me. Use me to be a blessing to others. God won't use you unless you tell him, unless you really surrender, because sometimes we tell him, but then we don't want to let go of our own will. We want to do things our way. We want to say, no, God, but I want to do this, and this is the way that I'm going to do it. And God is like, but it's not your way, it's my way. And if you trust me, and if it's my way, then why won't you let me be glorified in your life? Why do you want to have control of your life? So that's the teaching for today. Thanks for watching and have a nice day. God bless you.